You're listening to A Radio.
Landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. So I've decided to give you an update before I do the main piece. Now this may seem a little backwards, but to my mind it will serve to advise you what a bullet the UK has dodged. The highlights for last night, for me, and I had to watch the BBC unfortunately, so that wasn't good, and they were extremely confrontational. The first highlight was Corbyn's speech, where I'm guessing when he thanked his constituency for voting for him, it was very noticeable that there was one word used. Now many people may have missed it, but I didn't. It was comrade, a communist expression. Do you use the word comrade? I certainly don't.
Thank you. Could I start by saying a huge thank you to the returning officer and all the staff and the police that have ensured a fair and democratic election has taken place today, and also to congratulate and thank my fellow candidates for their participation in this election. And also a very heartfelt thanks to the people of Islington North for electing me again for the 10th time to represent Islington North in Parliament. I'm very, very proud to do so, and I've learnt so much from the people of Islington North, and it's my pride and my pleasure to continue to be their representative in Parliament. I also want to thank Ruth Hayes, our agent for this election, and all of the wonderful friends, comrades and supporters in Islington North Labour Party for the huge effort they put in this election campaign, and they put in all the time to carry a message of hope and justice all over our constituency, and through me, I hope, to a wider world.
My next point was that many of the pundits that the BBC had on kept saying the win was because of the wish of citizens to get Brexit done. Well, that may be the case, but there were certainly definitely other issues in play. One of the main issues came to light was the fact that people were very, very nervous of the Labour manifesto, and Jeremy Corbyn in particular. Despite the views of the BBC and all those lefties that work in that organisation, Britain is not now or never will be a socialist country, any more than Canada will be a socialist country, however much the Liberal Communists in power at the moment would like it to be. As usual, there was the inevitable arguing going on as who was to blame, etc., as soon as the predictions came out. However, it was extremely refreshing that they didn't blame the Russians. It was a big night for the Scottish Nationalist Party, who are dead against Brexit and have threatened in the past to launch legal action against the British government to stop Brexit. Good luck with that. That's all they want in Scotland is independence, supposedly. Very similar to Canada with Quebec, who bang the drum of independence non-stop while still taking billions from the rest of Canada. They, like the SNP, believe they will do better outside of their respective countries. The SNP believe they'll do better outside of the UK. The difference here is that many of the UK say good luck, and good luck with that, Scotland, because they are not financially viable as a nation. But they'll find out the hard way. But the final comment is the big majority for Boris. Boris Johnson pundits today are already saying trade deals with big economic countries like the US can't be done for years. So already the bureaucrats are putting obstacles in the way of British progress on free trade. Now, there are people out there who still believe there's no deep state. I can't give you a bigger example than this, that there is. Now, here's the original piece. Let's see if we got it right. And listen to what a catastrophe the UK dodged. Socialism on steroids. So, today, Thursday, when I'm writing this, Britain once again will be in the midst of going to the polls. Britons up and down the country will be going to vote. Some say it's the most important vote since the vote to join the EEC, the European Economic Community. I wonder if they'd known then what they know now about the true aims of the EEC, that Britons would have been so anxious and eager to join such an organisation. They were being urged at the time as a country to join, even by our American friends. They saw it as a good thing. They saw it as strength in numbers across Europe, as the world at that time was in the midst of a Cold War. When Britain joined the EEC, it was not long after, in time, that the Cuban Missile Crisis had taken place. Little more than a decade had passed. Britain was in the midst of, to be polite, economic uncertainty and certainly union unrest. Britain was brought to its knees by the miners and the 3-day week. The unions had the whip hand in Britain, and Britain, quite frankly, was on its knees with strike after strike after strike. Britain faced a very bleak future with no end in sight, so Europe seemed to be an obvious solution to a large number of Brits. A larger market for goods and services that would give the British worker a leg up from despair that they would otherwise face. So today could see the final chapter written for the European experiment, or maybe another chapter in the book of missed opportunities for this once great country. Now, there are many other things you can say about Britain, but the fact is they have tried numerous ways to dig themselves out of a hole, not least, of course, electing a Prime Minister by the name of Margaret Thatcher, who completely upended the British model and turned the economics of despair into the economics of success, rather like Donald J. Trump on a smaller scale. And on that note, I will leave you with the view from our Australian friends, who never miss an opportunity to call it as they see it. Whether it's as simple as they make it out to be or not, who knows? And by the time this is aired, the story will have already been written. But I'm going to stick my neck out here. It's probably going to get chopped off, we'll see. But I think the Conservatives are going to win with a bigger majority, big enough to force Brexit through. Here's that piece, and as always, links will be on my site. It's from Sky News, Australia.
Over in the UK, we're talking about the election, and that's all they're talking about in the final few days before Thursday's poll. Best for Britain, a Remain lobby group, have said that if just 40,704 people switch tactically their votes and move away from the Conservatives will be denied a working majority government. That number means that as few as 1/100th of 1% of Britons could decide the results of Thursday's general election. So it's all, we're told, now much tighter than people have led us to believe. Or is it? Previous UK polls and Brexit polling in particular were all off the mark. So let's bring in someone who got it right at the time, and he got the Trump win right and the Morrison victory right too. And that's editor of The Spectator and co-host of Sky News Outsiders, Rowan Dean. Or actually, you're the host, Rowan. The other's the co-host. You're right on so many fronts. I'll start there. I want to go into this pretty tough stuff in relation to the Hawke estate. But let's start with the UK. You've obviously got a lot of family and connections over there. How do you see it's all playing out? Because it looks like it's coming in tighter. I hope not, but it looks like it is.
Yeah, it is tight, and there's a number of reasons for that. and it is very difficult to predict. I mean, I do think Boris Johnson is going to win it, not necessarily with the great majority that many hope for. And I still think Nigel Farage's Brexit party, I've said all along that Brexit will only ever be achieved so long as Nigel Farage is part in some form or other of the Downing Street of the future, whether he's a consultant or involved in some way, or the Brexit party helps a minority Conservative government get things done. But it is tight, and it's tight for one very obvious reason, and that this is two elections rolled into one. It's the classic Labour versus Conservative or Tory election that's the staple of British politics going back decades, but it is also the Brexit election being replayed for about the fifth time. So yet again, Britons have to vote on whether they want to leave the EU or stay in the EU. Now, it's got to the point where even a lot of people who originally voted to remain in the EU are so fed up with the whole process, they just want to get it done and they want to get Boris Johnson in there to make it happen. That's the strongest card that the Tories have. The fact that people are just jack of the whole thing and please someone just put us out of our misery, and Boris Johnson is the person to do that. However, we have seen, and I spoke on Outsiders about this, despite the horror of a Corbyn government, what has been labelled an anti-Semitic Labour Party. Corbyn himself has been labelled by the UK Daily Telegraph and others as unacceptable because of his anti-Semitic views. The horror show in Britain at the moment is that you would have thought Corbyn was going backwards in the polls, but in fact he's going forwards or creeping forwards in the polls, and that is a truly, truly terrifying thought. But hopefully Britons will be sensible enough to vote. But as you say, Peter, a small tactical vote one way or another in the first-past-the-post system with four very distinct parties and this weird combination of Brexit, which the Labour Party are neither for or against, these weird combinations of different parties and different issues, it would be a very brave person, and I'm not that brave this time round, Peter, to call it.
Yeah, look, 1/100th of 1% of eligible voters, and I think there's, 46 million registered voters in the UK. That's an extraordinary statistic when you think of it like that, down to 40,000 people who could make or break. It could make a clown, an anti-Semite, a dangerous radical like Jeremy Corbyn, Prime Minister of one of the great countries of the world. It's horrifying, even just that prospect, let alone walking away from fulfilling what's been multiple votes by the British people to leave the EU.
You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Spotify, and email. We're on Spotify under the podcast section. Type in Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio. EHRADIO, A-Radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 11:45 Eastern, and tell your friends and pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the mainstream media want you to know.